Hello, my name is Dr. Sarah Allen, and I'm a psychologist and I specialize in working with people with anxiety and worrying. And today I want to share two simple tips from my booklet, Simple Steps to Overcoming Anxiety and Worrying. These are two quick tips. They are really effective though, so I hope you find them helpful. So the first one I want to talk to you about is called positive visualization. So what does that mean? So really, if you're worried about something, I want you to imagine yourself doing it. Imagine yourself in that position of, whatever it is you're worrying about. Maybe it's talking to somebody about something they're going to get upset with. Maybe it's a task you have to do at work. So imagine you're standing there. Really picture yourself. What do you see around you? Look around. What do you see? Are there people looking at you? Are there, different things that make you know you're really in that situation and not just a general situation? What do you hear? Our senses are very important to really making this visualization real. So how are you feeling physically as you're in that worrying situation? Are you kind of hunched over? Lots of times when we're worried and stressed, you're kind of in a protective mode. Your shoulders are slightly hunched, you lean over a little bit. You don't stand up straight, that's for sure. That's usually a confident mode. So where in the body are you feeling stress at the moment? I always feel stress, it's usually in my shoulders. A lot of people talk about butterflies in their stomach or as if there's like an elephant on their chest. People really hold their anxiety in their chest. So what are your thoughts? Think about, what you're thinking that's making you worried. So I'm a cognitive therapist and cognitions are our thoughts. So the way you think about something makes you feel a certain way and then behave a certain way. So if your thoughts are worrying about something, it's not going to go very well, this person's going to be upset with me, I'm not going to do very well, then, this is affecting how you feel about the situation. So once you're there, once you're feeling stressed, I want you to now picture it a different way. Now imagine yourself being in that situation and coping well with it. And pay attention to how you feel when you're successful at coping in the situation. Are you standing a little bit taller? Are your shoulders back? Is your head held high? Are you smiling? Where do you feel best? Are you confident in the way you're standing? I'm trying to think of a real life explanation for this, and one of the things that I always used to worry about, and maybe still a little bit, but not as much, is giving public talks or presentations where there's lots of people. So if I was feeling negative and worried about it, I might imagine myself, in the auditorium, there's all these people in the audience looking at me. I'm kind of not confident as I walk by. Maybe I trip up or something and everyone laughs at me, or maybe I forget what I want to say. And I know I've used this before, someone's asking me questions I don't know how to answer. I'm standing there, my shoulders are over, I'm looking tense and not very confident. Now, if I was in that situation and, I'm imagining myself it going well, people ask me questions, I'm answering them confidently, I'm smiling, standing up straight, everybody's like, oh yeah, this is a great presentation. So the way that you picture it going, the way that you're thinking about it is affecting how you feel. So, why does positive visualization really work? So when we think or act in a certain way, that makes pathways in our brain. So every time I'm asked to do a presentation, maybe I'm thinking, oh no, I can't do presentations. So that's making a strong pathway in my brain between the idea of a presentation and me feeling bad. But if we actually feel the fear and do it anyway, this teaches our brain to develop a memory that says, actually, doing this scary thing was really manageable. Nobody died, it wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it would be. And then you feel more confident in that situation when it comes up again, and your brain says, yeah, I can do that, that was manageable. The more times we do it, the less scary it becomes because our brain lays down a memory each time and makes a positive pathway between our emotions and that type of event. So, as we're talking today, we're talking about visualization. You don't actually have to even do that scary thing before you get the positive brain reaction. You can visualize the situation that you're worrying about and then imagine yourself being able to cope with it. And that, although it might feel a little silly to start with, is allowing you to create a mental image of this future event where you cope and you're successful and you begin to see the possibility of achieving it. So the positive imagery it also creates a new pathway in that brain that primes our body to act in a way consistent to what we imagined. So although practice is hard, as I say, you might feel a bit silly, it really, really works. And then when you come to do the real thing, you're going to get the physical and the emotional sensations related to, I can do it. It was great. Rather than, oh, it's impossible, I don't even want to try it. It really turns the way you're thinking around. So the other strategy I want to talk to you about today is studying your worries to make you feel in control of them. So as I mentioned with cognitive therapy, you're looking at your thoughts. Your thoughts affect how you feel. So if when you're feeling stressed, anxious, or worrying about something, I want you to grab hold of that thought. What are you thinking that might make you be worried? And write that down. What is the fear? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? What is it you're imagining? And then I want you to ask yourself, is this a useful worry or a useless worry? For example, if you had a big test, you might be fearful, it's very important, a lot's riding on it, it's going to be a really hard exam. That's a useful worry because that's going to motivate you into studying and getting on and doing well because you know the material. Now, a useless worry is when something's already happened, it's in the past, or you're worrying about something that might happen in the future, but you really don't know. And so you have no evidence that actually it's going to come true. These are useless worries. You can think about it and you can worry about it until the cows come home, but you're never actually going to be able to change it because it's not really there. It's a what if or it's in the past. So what I want you to do is, focus on writing down and really studying what worries are that are in the here and now. They're useful worries and that you can do something about. And I have other videos that, talking about that. The number one way to feel more in control and to reduce worry goes into that in more depth. So what else do we, once we do that, we study our worries. It actually makes you feel more in control. Because if you later write down if that thing you worried about actually happened, you will find that it probably didn't even happen in the first place. So the things that we worry about, maybe it's, being in the presentation, forgetting my words, that's not really going to happen. I'd be able to ad lib. So, what we really, really worry about never really happens. Or if it does, ask yourself, how did I cope with that situation? And I bet you coped fine. And even if it wasn't quite how you wanted to be, it wasn't nearly as bad as you're worried about it was. So there was a study a few years ago where they asked people to write down what their worry was at the moment. And then they went back 6 weeks later and asked them, how did you cope with, blah, 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 whatever their worry was. And over 85% of people said, oh, that never happened. Oh, it didn't even, I don't remember even worrying about it. And then of the 15% it did actually happen, most of them were like, oh no, it was fine. And it was only a really small percentage of people where it wasn't fine. But, they coped anyway. Everybody was there. Nobody died. They lived to tell the tale. So it's really important. It's never as bad as you expect it to be. And therefore you can be like this lady and do a happy dance. So what have we covered in this little video today? And thank you again for joining me. So summary is, we visualizing a problem, it actually makes your brain and your body more confident when actually doing the thing that you were worrying about. So have this like dress rehearsal in your head a few times before you actually go and have to do it. You can also feel more in control by studying and writing down your worries and isolating, the difference between, is this a useful worry and something I can actually do something about, or is it a useless worry? And then remember, what we worry about rarely happens, and when it does happen, you probably cope much better than you thought you would. So thank you for joining me today, and please hop over to watch other videos or visit me at my website at www.drsarallen.com.